Very, very kind introduction. I can see my mother is still writing. It's a pleasure to be down here again. I have been through this area several times over my history of being involved with various things in the state and trying to cover that. I just thought first I would start off with saying that I know the people that represent you in the Capitol, and I would say with Representative Evans and Ross, Representative Evans is new. I didn't know I was giving you some advice back in Branson when we met, but Robert Ross and I worked together on many projects over the years, and you are represented very well in the Missouri House. And I would tell you that we said it, somebody else has said it, somebody said it again, but I have heard from when I was at the White House just a couple of weeks ago working on a project for the governor, the heartbeat bill. That's what America is talking about here, and these two representatives that your representatives passed that heartbeat bill. So thank you one more. It's also a pleasure to work with my friend Mike Cunningham. Mike and I have been friends for many years. We've gone through a lot of ups and downs together, but Mike is a true gentleman. I would tell you he is a statesman as well, more than anybody could ever give an award for. He just does a fantastic job. And Mike is a good friend of mine, so thank you, Mike, for having me down here today with you as well. Congratulations to Larry and Tracy. I didn't know if you started out as a Democrat, you got a Lifetime Achievement Award as a Republican. That's fantastic. And Tracy, I'm sure your path was a little clearer than that. Congratulations to both of you. I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself because, as was mentioned, I am in a kind of a weird position. I was serving in the state senate, and term limits had my career in politics over, and my wife and I, that was okay with us, but the governor changed my life a little bit back in June. So I thought, because I haven't been around talking to people about my role as statewide, I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself and try not to put too many people to sleep. I know it's late and everybody has had a wonderful meal. So I'm originally from North City, St. Louis. A lot of people joke with me and say, "You're from North County, aren't you?" I said, "No, we were never rich enough to live in the county." North City, St. Louis. I am the youngest of 6 children. My father left when I was a year old. I never did meet him. My mom is a very Christian, devoted lady who decided that working and raising her 6 kids was what she had to do in life, and she in fact did. My mother is a hero in our mind and always will be. A living saint that I know today, but she did a great job of bringing us through. Just teaching us how to work. That's what my mom taught us how to do. And all of my brother, my 4 sisters, that's all we did. We worked. We gave our paychecks, or in those days, sometimes you got cash if you did the right jobs, right? We gave those to our mom, and that's just the way we thought. I tell everybody all the time, I was in high school when somebody told me they bought a stereo for their car, and I said, "Where did you get that money from?" And they said, "Well, we work. We keep our money." And I said, "You don't give your check to your mother?" "No." And I found out my mom is stealing from me. But along the line, after the jobs that most kids do and try to make money, mowing lawns, doing anything you can to help around the neighborhood, I was 15 years old. I was able to get a job washing cars at a Ford dealership. I took a public bus to the school I went to, and then I took the public bus onto the Ford dealership. I learned to wash cars, and that man who owned the dealership in South St. Louis City was a man named Dave Sinclair, and he took me in under his wing. He had 7 kids. They always joke that I was the adopted 8th kid. He really took me under his wing and taught me everything, really more about business, but just about life and how to treat people and how to treat folks. And I couldn't have been more blessed to have received somebody like Dave Sinclair in my life. So he helped me get through the car business. In the car business, you get a big promotion, as Wendell will tell you, when you go from the wash rack to the undercoat rack, Wendell. And that's the worst job in the world, by the way. But I worked my way up through different stages of that dealership, sales and into sales management. And one day, Mr. Sinclair called me in his office and said, "Hey, I've got this operation down in Lynn, Missouri. We build conversion vans and ambulances. It's doing horribly. I want you to go down there and shut the place down." And I said, "Boss, I'm not going to do that." "Oh, yes, you are. You're going to do that." So 17 Ford dealers own this business. Lynn is in Osage County, right center of the state. I went down there reluctantly. This is before cell phones and anything else. They had just invented a new machine then. It was called the fax machine. I'll never forget that. So I moved to Osage County, found out within 2 days from the employees they had a person embezzling their talked to the dealer to say, let's get rid of him. I didn't know anything about manufacturing, I knew about selling. I was going to only be there for a short time, and we got rid of the guy who was embezzling. A couple of days went by, the dealer said, why don't you stay there for 6 months and see if you can turn this thing around. By now I saw it was the home to 25 families who were working there, 25 employees that were supporting their families, and we didn't want to just shut the door down. So I made a deal with them. I said, if you guys build these things, I'll go out and sell them for you. So we did that 6 months later. We were fortunate enough to turn it around. Told the dealers, I'm done, you can find somebody, it's making money now, I'm going to move back to St. Louis and start selling cars again. I said, no, we really want you to buy the place from us. That's a challenge when you're 25 years old and you don't have any money, but thank goodness somebody came into my life that helped me finance that business. And it was then State Treasurer Wendell Bailey with a program called Mo-Bucks program. And Wendell, I'm the reason I'm standing here today, was one of Wendell Bailey's first recipients of the Mo-Bucks program, an SBA loan, begged and borrowed some people, found every dime I could. My mother obviously didn't have any money to loan me, but the owners ended up carrying the note a little bit. We put all that together, didn't we, Wendell? And we built this business, and we got going with the manufacturing business. In 1988, I purchased that in Lynn, Missouri. So that was my big start into business, and I've been a small businessman ever since. I sold that business to the employees in 1992 to acquire the Ford and Lincoln dealerships in Jefferson City. Those employees still own that business today. They now have 110 people, and they're the third largest emergency vehicle manufacturer in the United States. I'm very, very proud of them. Right around the time I sold the business to them, I was buying the dealership. I was fixed up in St. Louis on a blind date. I dated a woman for 3 weeks, and we got engaged. So I was very busy. And so that was, I tell everybody, it was 10 happy years ago, but 30 years total I've been married to my wife. Right at the time when I was acquiring the dealership, we were able to get married, and we never looked back. She's been very involved in my life and my business. I couldn't have picked a better person. That's just been a fantastic partner to me. Several in the room have met her. She's meaner than a snake to me, but she's nice to everybody else. We have 4 children. Our kids are ages 19 through 27. I like to tell everybody that God gave us the miracle of birth and the miracle of life, but God gave us a bigger miracle when the youngest one moved out of the house last year to go to college. So we worked in the dealership. Had a business, was mentioned. I got very involved in the community. I felt I should give back. The good Lord was very good to me, and I wanted to make sure I could give back as we went through life. We were fortunate enough to do that. 2004 actually, I was very active and in this market for the first time with a young man running for governor named Matt Blunt. And I took a sabbatical from the dealership to help Matt. I knew Roy and I knew Andy, I knew some of his family, and a lot of people in this room, a lot of people all over the state were very active in the gubernatorial campaign. As you recall, we were running against Claire McCaskill. That was a really, really tough race. I was even happier to see Claire lose, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so I got to be very good friends with Governor Blunt. After he became governor, he called and said, I'd like you to be on the Missouri Transportation Commission. I was honored to be able to accept that. It's a 6-member commission. That brought me back to West Plains again, where I learned what a zizzer was, in the home of the zizzers. Was here several times for various transportation aspects, still in the car business. But in 2010, our senator, a friend of mine named Carl Vogel, who people in this room knew, including Wendell very well, term limits brought him to an end of his Senate career, and so people got together and said, hey, you've been on the Highway Commission, you know about business, you live in Jefferson City, why don't you run for that Senate seat in Mid-Missouri? So I did do that. We were fortunate enough to win that. Ran for re-election again in 2014. And had an incredible job working in the Missouri State Senate. Got to serve with Chuck Ferguson his last 2 years, was served with Mike Cunningham, served with a lot of really good people in the Missouri State Senate. And like I said, I was ready. We were ready to get back into business. We are trying to expand the cattle operation just a little bit, and that was what we were going to do until Mike Parson called me. And when Governor Parson called me, it was, and I've known Mike, I worked with him when he was on when I was on the Highway Commission. He was a state rep from Bolivar, and then we went into the Senate at the same time in 2010, and then I was supportive, as many people again in this room were his lieutenant governor run. So I was good friends with him as a majority leader. We worked very closely with the president of the Senate, the lieutenant governor, every day, so I worked with him very close his 2 years as lieutenant governor. But after he became governor, he called me and he said, you know, there's a big, he says, I need you to think about something for me. And I said, oh, Mike, I'm ready to get out of this game. He said, no, this is going to be good. I want you to help me out, and we're going to move Missouri forward. And that's what the man said on the phone. It seems like it's just a tagline, but he said, that's really what I want to do. I want to kind of get the state back together and get us going again. We'd been through some rough times. The press was fascinated when Mike Parson got the call to be governor because they said, what were you doing? He said, I was sorting cattle. And they said, what did you do after you hung up? He said, I finished sorting the cattle. There's a lot of people in this state that don't understand what that means. Many in the room and myself do. But when Mike called me, I had just gotten out of the hayfields, and many people in this room know what that's like. A long day with a chain that broke and a stick that got stuck in the pickup wheel and all that other thing. The net wrap got screwed up and went through all those things, sweating horribly, and I'm on the phone, he's talking to me, and I'm trying to, be appreciative and just really shocked that he would ask me to do this. And I said, I'll tell you what, Parson, we're going to do this on one occasion, one condition. He said, what's that? I said, everybody was fascinated that you were moving cattle when you got the call. Now I'm putting up hay when you called me. The state's going to think we're run by a couple of rednecks. So in St. Louis, Kansas City, that doesn't play well, but everywhere else it does. I would tell you, if you look at where I came from in North City, St. Louis, and you see where through a lot of help from a lot of people and the governor giving me a vote of confidence where I am today, it's absolutely a pinch-me moment. It's an unbelievably humbling experience to be able to represent all of Missouri and all of Missourians in this level, especially where I came from. Everybody has kind of a funny story about what happens when you get some of these calls and what happens after. Mike and Teresa Parson they know my story very well. They know most of my family. My wife and Teresa are very good friends, and they said, we want to make sure your mother is there. My mother is now 91 years old. She lives in a nursing home in Jefferson City. She's pretty much bound to a wheelchair. And so they made all the accommodations for security and elevators and all the different things to make sure my mom could come to the swearing-in, which meant the world to my family. Just trust me, it was incredible for us. And so I went to my mother's nursing home, and you don't tell a 91-year-old lady too much in advance because they get nervous and not sure what to do. So I went that morning and said, Mom, we got a hairdresser lined up for you. You're going to get dressed. We're going to take you down to the castle. Why are we going down there? So I tell her the whole story. And she looked at me, as only a mother could say to her son. She looked at me and she said, why did the governor pick you? I'm trying not to let you down, Mom. But it was an incredible moment, and it was incredible to be there. It meant so much to me. So we were able to do that, and since then we've hit the ground running. The governor started several programs, or really kind of built the lieutenant governor's office, I should say, into something that had a little bit more teeth in it. Since when he was lieutenant governor, he said, you're going to have to come to work, you're going to have to get going, and you're going to have to get after it. And I said, absolutely, I'll do that, Mike. And he said, you're going to find out most people don't know what the lieutenant governor does. And I tell people all the time, if you don't know what the lieutenant governor does, you join about 98% of Missourians in not knowing. But what we do in session, as Mike mentioned, we preside over the Senate. We are the tie-breaking vote, should that happen. Most of the good conservative issues you've heard about tonight will likely never be a tie in the Missouri State Senate. But it's still good to be there, make sure that we can help leadership with my experience. I've been in the Senate for 8 years with what they need to do, and I work with them very closely every day and trying to figure out how we get things moving over there. Outside of session, we have some great jobs in the Lieutenant Governor's office. Number one is taking care of our veterans. The Lieutenant Governor's office works very closely. His number one priority is with the Missouri Veterans Commission. Missouri is home to 490,000 veterans. And people wonder why that is third most in the United States, folks. And most people say, how can we have so many? And my answer is twofold. One, we're in the Midwest, we're an incredibly patriotic group. We have incredibly patriotic people in the heartland here who want to serve their country. And number two is when we get people who come to Fort Leonard Wood, which I was at a ceremony there today just telling the same story. When we would get people to come to Fort Leonard Wood or Whiteman or Rosecrans and they meet Missourians and they find out about how good it is to live here and the prices to live here, we get a lot of retirees here that have already been based here. So we have a huge veterans population, and we work very closely with our 7 veterans homes, our veteran service officers, veteran cemeteries, etc. So that's one of the things we do out of session. The other thing is we work on tourism. So tourism is our number 2 industry. Agriculture clearly is number 1. But last year's tourism numbers just came in, Tourism had a $17 billion impact to our state's economy just in 2018, 42 million visitors just in 2018, and over 301,000 Missourians are employed directly in a tourism industry job. So we work very closely with what's going on. We can do to help promote our state. I like selling things, so I like to sell our state as well. And then the third thing, is the Buy Missouri program. Governor Parsons started when he was lieutenant governor, and we simply go out and identify companies who make products that are then also available to Missourians. And it seems like common sense, but we promote those products through the buymissouri.net website. And anytime somebody is out looking for an item, whether they're putting windows in their house, they need a toolbox for their shop, or they're having some kind of party and they need consumables, we want them to go to buymissouri.net and see what's made in Missouri. So maybe they'll have the choice to do that. We think keeping Missourians' dollars within our state and helping each other's friends and families who work at some of these businesses is a good common sense thing for us to do. So we do promote that. We now have 200, we just had Buy Missouri Day at the Capitol this week. We have 225 companies in the Buy Missouri programs, and we have Buy Missouri companies in 71 of our 114 counties. So the program is growing, it's getting better. We're looking for more organizations all the time. We can only continue to do that. We sit on several different boards and commissions in the Lieutenant Governor's office, so we work through a couple of different things on various boards and commissions, and then we pretty much do whatever the governor tells us to do. And so a couple of those times that has happened to me, as a matter of fact, I was thinking this as Congressman Smith was talking, and Jason is a fantastic representative for us in Washington, and I don't think you know how closely connected he is to the President of the United States, but they're very closely connected. And one time, President Trump was coming into St. Louis, Governor Parsons called and said, "Hey, I need you to go to the airport. We're going to greet, President Trump." And so this is fantastic. So we go there. If you ever go to meet a president, you got to get there early. You got to go through a security briefing. Everything's very staged and sanitized, and you have to, everybody says the exact order that they're doing. And I get that. So we're going to do all this. Mike Parsons is going to greet the president, and then he's going to introduce Teresa, and then he's going to introduce me. And so the president comes off the plane. What we didn't know is Ivanka comes right off behind him, and so Governor says hello to the president, introduces Teresa, immediately doesn't even pay attention to me, goes right to Ivanka, which I guess I don't blame him, and starts talking to Ivanka and introducing Teresa to Ivanka, and this awkward moment comes where the President of the United States is looking at me like, "Who are you and what are you doing?" And so I just shook my hand out, with the car dealer shake, and said, "Mr. President, I'm Mike Kehoe. I'm your Lieutenant Governor here for the state of Missouri." He goes, "Oh, it's really good to meet you." He said, "What does a Lieutenant Governor do?" Mr. President. We're like the Vice President. We just go wherever y'all tell us to go. So that was an interesting experience. But we've had a lot of great experiences like that across the state. And I will tell you, Governor Parsons he's working very, very hard to try to get Missouri's conservative agenda across and protect us from these crazy stories that you've heard tonight. Whether, when Robert was talking about the Green New Deal, I will tell you what Mike Parsons says about the Green New Deal. He says, "I have cattle on my property, and every day they make a bunch of Green New Deals. But in Missouri, we're just smart enough not to step in it." And so that's exactly right. And when you hear some of these crazy things coming in the heartland, and I'll never forget, Blaine Lutemeyer, who's one of our congressmen, a friend of mine, told me one day, he said, "Kehoe, you think you know what a liberal is, but when you go to the coast," he said, "they multiply and magnify how bad they are like crazy." And in the heartland, we kind of start forgetting about it, and all of a sudden, reality hit us after unfortunately, we're not able to keep the House, and I know Jason and others will work very hard to get that back in 2020. But when you saw New York City start lighting their buildings pink because they could literally have infanticide legal, they can kill babies right out of the womb. When you serve the governor, as Jason said earlier, talk in Virginia about keep the baby comfortable, and then we'll decide what happens. Folks, there's still a lot of evil people in this world. And I think it's up to us and our party to make sure that we try to protect those Missouri Christian conservative values for not only us, but for the heartland. Now, I've got a little bit of a confession. Our family was all Democrats too. Mr. Sexton, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And know what, when I find about Missouri, there's a lot of Missourians here who think they're a Democrat right now. You have neighbors, you have people in this Howell County that think that right now. And guess what, folks? They're watching these things happen on TV, and you know what they're realizing? They don't align with that party. They don't align with that party. And that's why the grassroots effort that is sitting in this room in all of our counties across the state, that we're going and talking to people, I'm absolutely encouraging them, almost begging them to understand that this election in 2020, everybody has heard the last several elections, what it's always what? The most important election. But what you heard what Jason said, when we now have a peek behind the curtain of how crazy the liberal agenda can be with the Green New Deal and with the idea that abortion should be basically available through a vending machine, we need to make sure that not only do we dig in as conservatives and hold our ground, but we look for those other people who are really kind of not sure about this anymore. That I think there's opportunities out there in the marketplace right now is what I would say. In 2020, we're not going to have a U.S. Senate race going on. We will have a governor's race, a lieutenant governor, and treasurer, etc. We've got to have a House race, a Senate race to keep our seats down in this area especially. But we're not going to get the focus from the national like we likely did in the Holly-McCaskill race, so it's going to be even more important for the grassroots people, the people in this room. I'm here because people just like you in my 7-county areas helped me. Mike Cunningham, Robert Ross, Representative Evans, we're all here because of the grassroots. We can say we run around and we work hard and everything. We don't win without the people in this room. And I can't begin to tell you how important those efforts are, how much I appreciate the efforts you've done to put people in office. But as we approach this next election cycle, how much you're going to have to continue to concentrate. I want to tell you just a real quick funny story as I narrow things down here. And many of you may have met him, but one of the biggest characters that we're also fortunate to have as a good friend of the president is Congressman Billy Long. And Congressman Long has the best story in the world. And I found out this is 100% true. And if some of you heard it, I'm sorry. The very first day that Josh Hawley got in office, he called Josh's office, some intern answered phone. He said, "Hey, this is Congressman Billy Long. Can I talk to Claire McCaskill?" And she said, "Well, I'm sorry, Congressman. Claire McCaskill lost. She's not here." He said, "Okay." So he said he waited a day and he called back the next day, and same lady answered the phone, probably some 20-year-old intern. He said, "Hey, this is Congressman Billy Long. Can I talk to Claire McCaskill?" And he's an auctioneer as well, so he has that auctioneer voice. And she said, I'm sorry, Congressman, that Claire McCaskill didn't win. She's not here." "Okay." He hung up the phone. He said he calls her back on the third day. Same question. She gets aggravated now. She said, "Congressman, I've been telling you, this is my third time. She is not here. She did not win the election." He said, "I know it, but I just like calling here now." I've heard Billy tell that 3 or 4 times, and I thought it was just kind of his way of kind of loosening up the crowd. So I'm with Josh Hawley in Springfield a week ago, and he starts telling me that story. He's like, "You wouldn't believe what Billy did to one of my interns." The point is that we need to make sure that we continue to like how that sounds. We got to continue to remember that was a fantastic victory for Missouri and Missourians to get Claire McCaskill out of office. Like I said, we ran against her in 2004 with Governor Blunt, and it was horrible. It was unbelievable to me how she had one voting record when she was in Missouri and a different voting record when she had Washington, D.C., but that's what you're seeing now in the U.S. House with some of these people who got elected who ran kind of as a moderate back in whatever state they were running in, and they got in, and now they're just this crazy left-wing stuff. We got to make sure that we do everything we can to protect our turf here, protect our statewide ticket, to do what we can to help the Jasons and Billies who are helping their counterparts win those things, because you now have a look behind the curtain on how crazy the Democrat Party can be, and I think it's just more important than ever to get that fixed up and make sure that we give the governor, or give the president, I should say, another 4 years of things that he's doing. You all know all the numbers are fantastic. And if you've never been to one of those rallies, they're the most unbelievable. My wife is not a very political person, and I told her we've been to 2 of the rallies. And when we went to the first one in Springfield, I said, "Now, I've never been to one of these things, honey, but I hear they're just absolutely unbelievable." And she said, "Well, okay, I'll go with you." And she's walked out of that thing like she's ready to go through a brick wall. She said, "This is the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in my life," and they are the most unbelievable thing you've ever seen. And that's the kind of passion we have in Missouri behind a good conservative agenda that we just need to continue to push. I wanted to just close with a couple of people down here who have been really influential in the state for us right now. I mentioned tourism. You know, Ward Franz is now your tourism director. Ward was the first person to actually call with Mike Cunningham to say, would you consider coming down to Howell County and we'll figure this out. He is doing a fantastic job for us. I can't tell you how proud I am of the work he's doing, and you should be proud of a guy who has at one time represented this area, and you know him very well. He's doing fantastic. And the other person is Tim Beams. Anybody know Tim from this area? Well, that guy is a rock star. He's our state fire marshal, as you know. I met Tim when I was down here for some other things many years ago, and when I found out he was going to be the state fire marshal, he has just done a fantastic job, and you should be very proud of how your area is being represented in the state capitol. Those are two rock solid people that I just think are fantastic to be around. Listen, it has been an absolute pleasure to be able to spend some time with you tonight, to be back in Zizzer country tonight. So it's fantastic to be down here. I really appreciate you giving me a few minutes to just allow me to say hello as you went through the dinner line or as I bugged you at one of your tables over here. I want you to know how much of an honor it is to serve you. I believe that we completely serve you. My wife has been very involved with Teresa Parson now in representing Missouri and all the different things that the first, and we call her the second lady, which she hates. So we've changed the entry on our calendar to 2LC because her name's Claudia, so second lady Claudia. She doesn't talk to me in a week. We are doing this as a couple, just as Mike and Teresa are. We are absolutely just humbled by the Missourians we meet, by the appreciation we get, by the almost every day, no, literally every day, almost every hour I'm somewhere, somebody offers that they're praying for us. You don't know how much that means to both myself, my wife, the governor, and his wife. It is absolutely just been a great journey. I am so fortunate to be here and blessed to be with you tonight. Thank you so much for